What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. So recently Riot announced that starting on yesterday actually, starting now, League is going to have 10 additional free champions in the rotation for a total of 20 free champions for the next entire month actually. So we're breaking down the details and kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this and really why Riot's deciding to add more champions to the rotation, and the strategies that they're taking with this change is actually pretty interesting. And also now before we start, I just wanted to say that we are officially launching the start of 2 new channels this week. So we're launching Overwatch Curios, which is going to be an Overwatch channel, which is very similar to what we're doing on League of Legends and Hearthstone content, kind of like interesting commentary types of videos. And we're also launching our League of Legends Moments channel, where we're going to be doing community videos and montages and stuff similar to what we do on our Overwatch channel. And to celebrate the launch of both of these channels, we're going to be giving away $200 worth of RP, and it's going to be super easy to enter. All you have to do is just check the link in the description and go through the Gleam competition. It's all very simple, won't take you longer than maybe 30 seconds. Again, just check the link in the description and we'll be announcing the winners on Twitter at the end of the month. So follow us there if you haven't already, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. So the update post from Riot Wizard Crab was pretty well received. After all, League of Legends is a free-to-play game, so having more champions available to play for free without spending RP or IP is a pretty good thing for, honestly, everyone. It's hard to find faults for that. One thing that a lot of players might not necessarily be happy about with, though, is that all of the new champions that are free are intended to be played as support characters. So this is a little bit confusing as to why Riot decided to give a ton of champions to play in one role specifically. Essentially, this is an experiment by Riot. It's something they're trying out that's aimed at seeing if giving players free access to a bigger pool of supports is going to encourage more players to try out the role, to play support in general, and as a result, potentially improve queue times. It's no big secret that players just don't generally play support as much as the other roles, despite the fact that recent releases and reworks have actually made support a lot more fun to play and a lot more proactive to play as well. That being said though, most players have kind of been on the game for a long time now, and the usual process is that support is just a little bit more boring compared to the other roles, so they either don't want to spend their IP or RP on buying more support champions or just playing the role in general. And this is the mentality that Riot is trying to eliminate, or at least to sort of soften. By just making so many different support characters available to play for free, they're giving people the chance to test run them, so they're essentially hoping that players are just going to give it a shot and discover that they actually really enjoy the role and will stick with it for the long term. So the champions themselves that are becoming free, the 10 champions are Blitzcrank, Brand, Braum, Janna, Leona, Nami, Sona, Taric, Thresh, and Zyra. And they'll all remain available on rotation for free for the next 4 weeks from the day that I'm uploading this video. So those 10 champions are free for the next 4 weeks, while the rest of the rotation is going to continue as normal on the weekly schedule where it changes. So a lot of mid players might be happy to see that Brand and Zyra are available to play for free, since they're definitely viable characters to be played in mid lane. But for the most part, it's definitely a concentrated effort by Riot to get more people playing support, and realizing that unlike the past seasons, support is a lot more fun to play now, and you really do feel like you make an impact and have a difference, and you can make plays and carry from the support role. And what a lot of players don't necessarily, or might not necessarily realize about support, is that there's also a lot more playstyle variety now. That wasn't really the case back in the early seasons when supports was kind of just like a ward bot for the macro game, or really kind of just roaming champions almost. Champions like Braum and Leona are going to give you really aggressive ways initiating fights, tanking damage. You've also got the enchanters that can give people buffs and heals and stuff if you want that more passive style like Taric and Nami. You've also got the aggressive mage supports like Zyra and Brand. They all have different strengths and weaknesses in lane, and Riot are hoping that giving everyone the chance to experience those different playstyles will ideally make players a lot less reluctant to play support, since they might find a particular class of supports that they really enjoy. It might not necessarily be a case of players hating to support. It could be just a large number of players. Maybe you just haven't found the right champion yet. It's kind of the same thing with jungling. Playing one jungler isn't going to give you the full jungle experience. Once you play a few different styles of jungler, I know for sure, at least in my experience playing jungle, there's a couple champions I play that just, oh, this is not that fun, or doesn't make me want to play this role, but then I played a different champion that was a lot more my style and it actually worked out a lot better. And having all of these different sort of options and things to try out are going to help players find out which champion they prefer the most. So Riot Meddler also helped to give some context about why Riot thinks most players aren't giving that much attention to playing support, and really the current state of supports in general. Not necessarily having as large of a support player base compared to the other roles really does kind of suck, honestly, because it does negatively affect the rest of the entire game, really. It gives everyone longer matchmaking queues. Players get autofilled to support, or essentially can't ever offer support as a secondary role or fill, because if you choose fill when you queue in the system, you just get forced into support literally every single time, right? That's not ideal. Although releasing free support champions to play to maybe try and get people interested is a good step in the right direction, the more important thing for Riot to do is definitely to make supporting more attractive to players in general, but without taking away what makes supporting appealing to the current already existing support player base. Riot have done a pretty okay job with this so far. The release of new and exciting support champions like Bard and Thresh have been super awesome because they've brought so much to the role, so much character, really interesting, impactful kits that can be really mechanically challenging to use properly as well. And that appeals to players that tend to play solo lanes a little bit more. They want to show off, those guys, they want to show off, they want to outplay their opponents, and supports like Thresh that have that playmaking potential kind of achieve the same thing when you can land those god hooks and make those awesome plays, right? Now, Riot Meddler also shared a bunch of factors that Riot are taking into account when it comes to changing or releasing new supports in 2017, and it's pretty detailed, so overall it's a pretty decent idea of what might actually be coming up in Season 7. So the first thing Riot wants to address is definitely going to be gold income, since as a support, well, you earn way less gold overall than other roles. So Riot definitely needs to decide whether they want supports to gain close to or even a matching amount of income as maybe the other roles, since that would give support champions a lot more influence over the course of the game. They can hit their power spikes with those early item pickups too. And if they decide to go all ahead with that plan, the next step's definitely going to be, how do they get that extra income onto the supports, but without creating problems in other roles or incentivizing what they classify as like really weird behavior? For example, you can't just increase the gold per 5 of the support items to give more passive gold, or you're going to end up with all the solo laners and junglers buying support items, right? Essentially, it's all about finding ways to boost support gold income without opening up weird strategies or totally destroying the meta and making things like support and assassin mid a thing, or maybe playing like Rengar bot lane, like assassin's bot lane, because if you get so much gold, like why even play support champion sometimes, if you think about it. And if the bonus gold is shared, people would want those early items on assassins, because assassins would just take over the game if they get that early boost in gold. It's a very, very tricky thing to figure out balance-wise and mechanics-wise and how to implement. But Riot's definitely trying to tackle it in Season 7. The next thing Riot also wants to focus on is recognition of success, and this is something that I think is an awesome thing to focus on for support. It's a way to highlight when your support does something awesome. When your support makes a play, it should be clear, like, hey, my support, he's got my back. That guy just carried my ass, like that is something that the support role kind of lacks sometimes, just because yes, supports can carry, but the bigger difference really is just that when a support actually carries, it's a lot harder to tell, or at least it doesn't feel like they carried, if that makes sense. There's already a lot of things like this that are in the game for the damage dealers or the carry classes. You've got your killing sprees, you've got just having bigger numbers, having a ton of CS or like a good KDA. Even stuff you've got like the damage dealt board at the end of the game, all those statistics and stuff like that really favor the carry classes. On the other hand, pulling off a super cool play as a support is a lot more difficult to highlight or appreciate, since you only really know what happened if you actually watched it in the game, right? So sometimes pulling off insane saves or countering an enemy combo is just as hard and especially just as impactful as pulling off a multi-kill or some kind of wombo combo or something like that, or maybe doing a ton of damage in a team fight or whatever. So Riot definitely wants to find a way to highlight those epic moments so that support players get the same amount of satisfaction, the same amount of appreciation and recognition as the carry classes, the other roles in general do. And that's something that I think would make support a lot more fun to play, so I'm definitely excited to see how they try to implement that. And something that Riot has already mentioned that they want to work on as well is itemization for supports, and they actually made a start on it in the preseason. They released a couple new items, and they removed the aura from Aegis of the Legion, which definitely helped the support itemization quite a bit. And going forward, they definitely want to make sure that support items are compelling enough that players want to pick up support items for specific situations, specific reasons, and support players need to feel like they're actively getting stronger as they pick up new items, which is something that kind of struggles a little bit right now. Comparing a support with 3 items to a damage dealer with 3 items is a massive difference. When I'm playing like an assassin or an AD carry, when I get my 3rd item, oh man, I'm going off. I feel amazing. I feel super powerful. You feel so much more effective in the game as you pick up items as a damage dealer, whereas on a support, it kind of just feels like maybe you gain a little bit of tankiness here and there, you get a nice active effect to use, I guess, but overall it feels like you're kind of just doing the same thing, but with, later into the game, right? So, Sightstone is another hot topic at Riot, since right now it also essentially says that if you're a support champion or if you're queued as the support role, you spend your first 800 gold on this item no matter what, so your build is going to be behind for the entire game. Rather than feeling like you actually have any choice on the matter, which, definitely can be kind of a bummer. Now, to fix this, Riot would probably have to change the way vision works again though, and despite numerous reworks to the vision system of League, they still haven't found the perfect balance, so it's really difficult to figure out what they can do with that Sightstone issue. One potential solution is maybe offering more niche support items to spend the first 800 gold on that maybe you can either opt out of, or play the vision game, or do something to start progressing to more powerful items without feeling like you're just going to be useless or that your gold isn't going to have an impact throughout the game. And the next 2 criteria that Riot are looking at for improving how supports feel to play is to look at both the pre-game options available to them and the patterns that they follow during the game. So to start with, Riot wants to make sure that runes, masteries, and summoner spells all serve different purposes based on what a support champion needs, rather than just kind of being things that are useful for damage dealers and kind of just get converted into useful things for supports, right? So that might mean maybe strengthening support masteries, or maybe even offering completely new runes that could give support players more benefits that the other roles might not need, like maybe gaining more healing or shielding power, something they kind of have already introduced for items to make them feel better for support players specifically. Whatever changes they make, they definitely need to make sure that they feel good to use and offer actual advantages over just taking what you would normally use instead, like taking a tanky rune page because you happen to be playing a tanky support. As for in-game decisions though, it's more about making sure that they're filling an active role in the game, and one reason why a lot of players play mage champions as supports and why mage champions are so popular as supports is because it gives you a lot more of an engaging playstyle. You get to work on your positioning, harass the enemy, you can help push waves, you can go for kills, you can burst people down even, and if you get a lead, you can just turn into an actual AP carry. On the other hand, some of the more defined support champions can actually be pretty passive and not necessarily offer any real interest outside of maybe healing, body blocking, a few enemy skill shots, dropping some wards, and just saving and helping your teammates. And that's a playstyle that's not exactly fun for, unfortunately, a majority of the player base. The same goes for when the game progresses and teamfighting starts. Supports should definitely have a much more active role in a fight, and although Riot have been going in the right direction with recent releases, this is something that would probably be better addressed by adding new items to give more options to support players that can maybe give them the chance to make a usually passive support champion into something that has a little bit more playmaking potential. At the end of the day though, like Medler said, there's a really good chance that making these support champions free to play isn't going to make any difference whatsoever to the general interest in the support role, but it's the preseason. It's the ideal time to test things out, and Riot does have future plans for updating supports in general, so they're not running out of options anytime soon as for things that they want to try. Anyway though, that's just about going to wrap up everything about the free support champions, the state of support in general. Hopefully this little study by Riot pays off, because making support champions as fun to play as the other roles would go a huge way in smoothing out matchmaking and could actually show players that, well, they've been missing out on some really interesting gameplay. Either way though, looks like that's going to be it for me. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.